Everybody, I'm Kevin Czajkowski. I think I know everybody, but Dr. C from the University of Toledo, Department of Geography and Planning. So tonight we're going to do a NOAA Be Wet webinar on water quality hydrology for GLOBE. I'm going to first talk a little bit, and then Cindi Madanski is going to talk from McKinley STEM Academy in Toledo, and then we have a video of John McLaughlin, who's a NOAA. Okay, I'll call him an executive. So, but I knew him since he was in undergrad, I believe. So I've known him for a while. All right, so let's get started. And Be Wet is all about hydrology and taking water quality observations. Oh, let me see if I did something here. I have to share my screen. Okay, now we're working. And so this is the first of, I believe, 4 webinars we're planning for the year. And it came out of a Be Wet funding from NOAA. So NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This funding was for 1.5 years, and it's jointly with Amanda Gilbert, and Amanda's on. She's from Defiance College. All right. So, and this is also part of the Globe Mission Earth project, in which we have partners in West Ed, UC Berkeley, and Tracy's on from Berkeley, Boston University, Tennessee State, and NASA Langley. And you can see here, this is our, what we call a reach map. These are all the people across the United States that we have impacted through the Globe Mission Earth project. And we're making a new map for this year. This was last year. All right, let's see. So I want to emphasize, why are we doing this? Why do we do all this stuff? Well, one is we want students to do projects and using GLOBE data. So, and then give presentations. So we give students opportunities to give presentations. So at the University of Toledo, we have our Satellites Conference will be May 6th. It'll be during the day from 10 till about 1:30. Now, allow students to get there and the buses and all that stuff. So here's some pictures from previous years. This past year, we had about 220 students at the university, and it was really good, I thought. Defiance College and Amanda, she's seeing if there might be one at Defiance College, a Satellites Conference, and trying to decide when that might be in the spring. There's some other things. There's the U.S. Student Research Symposia, and there are 6 regions around the country for GLOBE. Now, new this year is you're going to have to put the GLOBE data on your poster. You're going to have to say, this is the GLOBE data my students use, or the students have to do that on their poster. So that's something new. So I want to make sure that's known or out there. Also, the Virtual Science Symposia projects are due March 10th. And this is an opportunity for students to upload their projects on the GLOBE website and then have scientists from around the world to address those projects, or to review those projects. Then from the projects that are uploaded, the ones that have all the 4 stars, they do a 4-star rating. A random drawing is drawn for the annual meeting. Groups of students can then go to the annual meeting. And this year it's in Washington, D.C. So also at the regional SRSs, a team is usually chosen. I think there's funding for those students to go to the annual meeting in Washington. It's July 12th through 16th. The one thing is this year, they're not just allowing any students to come. They have to be the ones chosen at these presentation events. Although I believe as a teacher or a university person, you could come to the annual meeting and, of course, pay your way. So I want to talk about some water quality observations I did yesterday. And well, it started to rain, but this is a pond behind one of the schools here in Michigan. And it's an ephemeral pond, so it's not very deep. It's just, there's a lot of frogs around it. And so let's see what I'll do here. Stop sharing for a second. I show you some of the friends I picked up. All right, so here's some back swimmers. Okay, is anybody squeamish about these things? Okay, so there's I think these are diving beetles. Mm-hmm. Okay, oh, someone's agreeing with me. I got a bullfrog, tadpole, I thought it was kind of late in the season for tadpoles, but hey, it was in there. And then I got this thing. If you can see that. Okay, now the back swimmer is attached to this long skinny thing. Okay, I didn't know what the long skinny thing was, so I picked it up. Of course I didn't take tweezers, right? I'm not thinking, so I'm just picking it up with my hand. This is a water scorpion, and apparently they bite. So got lucky there, didn't get bitten. All right, so let me go back to sharing. All right. Okay, so this is, okay, so some really interesting things in the water. Now, I don't know if anybody heard about this. This was an alligator that was in the pond. Not yesterday, but it was in the pond previously. So this is a picture from when the alligator was in the pond. I'm sure it was having a good time eating the frogs and stuff. There's a lot of frogs in that pond. I went with Timmy, I think it was a 6th grade science fair project. We caught a bunch of macroinvertebrates. And this is the news story from Channel 11 when they caught the alligator. And they took him to the, I call it a petting zoo, but I suppose they don't pet alligators at the petting zoo. But there's a zoo nearby called Indian Creek, and they took the alligator. So these are my observations here. I looked at the Globe website. I didn't know if maybe I should, I was going to try to do this live. So let's see if this works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see. Oh, okay. So going back, looking at the macroinvertebrates, I was trying to figure out if my macroinvertebrates I caught indicated a healthy water or not. And then I looked at the guide here, and none of the ones I caught are on the guide. So I wasn't sure. I'm pretty sure though, because they are all like insect types, the insect types tend to be near the top, and they don't tolerate water pollution very well, and that the water was pretty good for this pond. And then given the number of frogs, and there's a lot of life around this ephemeral pool, that's my guess. All right, so let's go, here's the Globe website. Okay, so if you haven't done this before, you can go to Globe Data, Visualize Data, and you can try things out live, right, and see what happens. Sometimes it goes well, and actually most of the time it doesn't go well, but we'll see. So when you go to the page, you can click on the pizza boxes and hydrosphere. And I did, let's see, nitrates, nitrite. I didn't do dissolved oxygen. Actually, I had a kit, took it out there, and the box inside the kit with the ampules was empty. So that wasn't the best. So I'll have to make sure that we don't put back empty boxes into the cabinet. All right, so I did water turbidity tube, water temperature, and pH. Let's see, submit those. All right, so we have a bunch of observations from around the world. Let's see here of the water quality. I think they choose about a week. Okay, let's see over here. Taiwan, the Middle East. Middle East is really big into water quality because they don't have a lot of it. And then Croatia, and then the United States. Let's see, we can try zooming in. Okay, look at that. We have a number of schools around here in the Toledo area that took observations and entered the data on the website. Oh, I see Shoemate Middle School with Jeff Bauman. These are my observations. I'm thinking this is Clay High School. And then John, that's you probably, right? Perkins, your students. That's cool. I'm just zooming in. So I think if I click on this, a box should pop up. There you go. It's actually so I did these observations at the Bedford Biology Pond. Here's the transparency tube, was 44 centimeters. And I can choose the temperature. All right, it's about 15.2 degrees Celsius. Oh, freshwater macroinvertebrates. Yeah, I can do that. So it gives me all the data, right? And that's, oh, no plot. available, but I had 4 samples, 3 different habitat, and it gives me the different names that I used. All right. And the nitrates, there were 0, which was really good. There seemed to be some phosphates, but we don't do phosphates in the globe right now. I have a separate one that I can put it into. Anyway, let's see if I go back to the PowerPoint. I think it's just, I'll just be recapping all this stuff. All right, yep, that thing, that. Yeah, I took pictures of the bugs. Oh, that was that water scorpion, I believe. How cool is that? And then I'll just end with this, is that, you know, these are our websites. I think we're starting to get more things back on Twitter, Facebook account, YouTube channel. So this webinar will be on the YouTube channel. And of course, I have to show my son getting smashed by 2 guys in soccer this year. He seemed to get smashed all the time. So, okay, so that's my water quality experience. Going out myself. It was raining, so my wife didn't go with me. My son Timmy, he was at band practice, so I had to do it myself, but that's all right. All right, let's see, we got a chat. Oh, yeah. That's funny. It looks like we eat a lot of Tostitos. Yes, my wife insists that we keep these jars. I'm not sure. You know, she wants them for painting or something. I don't know if she would like it that I used them for my macroinvertebrate samples. So anyway. Okay, so yeah, if you have any questions, just post them in the chat. And I use Chemetrix snap kits, you know, little ampule things. Use some paper for the nitrates and nitrites. So it wasn't too hard, and the turbidity tube. Just went and got some water, and the mud smelled really bad. All right, so I'll turn it over to Cindi. And Cindy's going to talk about her classroom. So Cindi.
Well, thanks. So I'm Cindi Madanski. I teach at McKinley STEM Academy in Toledo Public Schools. I have 7th and 8th grade science. Last year was my first year doing Globe at all. So my students did collect some surface temperature data and cloud data, and they participated in the satellites conference. Did a really good job. They learned a lot. Oh, my Alexa's picking up what we're saying here. But so that was, you know, my introduction to Globe was last year. This year we did some water quality stuff. So it was my first time ever doing it. I don't consider myself an expert at it at all, but I'm happy to share kind of the experience, what our kids did. So I'm going to share my screen here, if I'm doing this correctly. I want that. All right, can you guys see that?
We can see it, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so so this is kind of our hook for how we were doing water quality. So that's my dog, actually, and that was the driving question that my kids were using. We were trying to figure out, is the water here in Toledo safe enough for Mohawk, that's my dog, and other dogs to actually swim in? So kind of the reason why we went that route is TPS has some STEM elementary schools, and the philosophy and the focus for our STEM schools is project-based learning. So everything I try to do, I try to wrap it around this whole gold standard PBL, these design elements. So, you know, the idea of having that challenging problem and question to kind of wrap everything around is where my focus was. So just to get us started, I did bring my dog into school one day, got the kids, you know, having a reason to want to actually study this project. We also talked about the fact that he loves to go kayaking with me, and he loves to swim in the water, and you know how fun that is, and getting the kids kind of excited about seeing that. And then we kind of brought out some of these news articles, and I said, oh my gosh, you guys, look at this. Like, there's these dogs that are getting sick and they're dying when they're coming in contact with this water. You know, should I be concerned? Should other people be concerned? Should you be concerned? So we did a lot with doing some of this research first. We did a lot of reading articles and news things on their Chromebooks, took a lot of Cornell notes of what was happening with these dogs. And eventually, this is kind of what our PBL wall looked like for this project. So our title, Save the Dogs, the kids kind of came up with what this was going to be about. Then again here, you know, our big driving question, this is what all of our learning kind of focused around. So my kids in Toledo, this is inner city. My school is very landlocked. We don't have any water sources we can walk to from school. And a lot of my kids have never stepped foot, you know, near a river or a lake or anything like that. So to make it more real to them, to make them just care about why we were doing this, that was kind of the idea of why we were hooking it back to this driving question. And then with PBLs too, we kind of generate this need to know list that's right down here at the bottom. So these were kind of the questions that the kids kind of posed. And of course, you know, as a teacher, you kind of manipulate them to get the question that you wanted them to think about. But once we have the driving question, then they had to look at, you know, what is it in the water that is dangerous? Why are these dogs getting sick? Is it dangerous to people too? They wanted to know, where are all these dog deaths happening? Are there any that have happened close to us? Or is this just, you know, Florida and wherever? They want to know, is our water safe right now? Is it okay to go ahead and drink water? The kids were asking these questions when we started to introduce this. I kind of squeezed this one in here, but I needed them to know what bodies of water we have next to us. They simply didn't know that. So, you know, we wanted to know the whole watersheds and what rivers, creeks, streams, lakes are there in Toledo. Again, back to the watershed. And then finally, this is really what we were getting to. And of course, is, you know, what do we do to test? How do you find out if water is safe? What kind of tests are there? So my kids, we were really working through, we did some work with Globe as well, but we were also working through TMACOG's Student Watershed Watch. So that is kind of the testing protocols that we used. And with the Student Watershed Watch, there's really 3 parts to it. So we have some chemical testing the kids had to learn about and do. They did work with macroinvertebrates, and they also had to do a habitat analysis. So just a couple of things I did in class prior to the Watershed Watch, and prior to our field trip, getting them to know what a watershed is all about. We used an Enviroscapes model. So learning about point and non-point source pollution, what a watershed is, how everything works, you know, how pollution gets into our water. So we did some work with that. We invited a photographer in. So this is Christy Frank. She's here in Toledo. She's a photographer. And her work is, she's working on this project. She calls it the Voice of Lake Erie. So she's taking photographs of Lake Erie, and they're actually being published by National Geographic. So she's kind of a big deal right now. But she came in, and you can see her with this jar of green sludge from Maumee Bay. So bringing that in for the kids, letting them see it. She showed us a lot of her photographs. Part of PBL is trying to bring in those outside experts to make sure your kids are aware of kind of the big problem. We also then, we invited in a veterinarian. So Dr. Dillon came in. They had a lot of questions about exactly what happens to these dogs if they come in contact with this water. How can you prevent them from getting sick? You know, what, is it the liver? Is it the stomach? They wanted to know exactly what was happening to the dogs. So the veterinarian came in and talked about that. So once we kind of knew what the problems were with just water in general and how it affects dogs, then we talked about, okay, so we need to go out and test some water. You want to answer the question, is the water in Toledo safe? We need to actually go out and do this. So part of project-based learning is students need to have some voice and choice in their project. It's not teacher-driven, it's student-driven. So we talked about, okay, if we're going to select a site, what are some things we have to think about for it to be safe for us and feasible for us to go there? So we generated all these things to consider in class. We kind of charted the things kids would have to consider, and then we gave them 5 different options of places where we had permits, we were allowed to go. So these were some of the places that kids could choose from. So Willys Creek, so they were thinking about some of the problems. It was not really easily accessible. They couldn't really get down into the creek very easily. So that was kind of the big reason why they were not on that one. We talked about going downtown to the Maumee River at Middle Grounds Metro Park. Really, really deep water. Of course, we didn't want them to pick that, but you want to get the kids to make that decision on their own. We showed them Sidecut. This is eventually where we were trying to steer them to, and it is what they decided on their own. But the idea that there's lots of just wildlife in general, lots of birds, lots of fish, lots of things going on there. It didn't look green. The water was nice and shallow. You know, it's easy to wade out into. This is kind of where we were hoping they would go, and they did. And the last one we gave them was Delaware Creek. It's kind of standing water, lots of mosquitoes, lots of bugs. They were not cool with that one. So eventually we got to Sidecut. Again, they were, you know, happy to make that decision. It wasn't just the teacher saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to test this water. They knew where they were going, why they picked that place. So we did have an all-day field trip on September 24th. Getting them ready for that field trip, we had to teach them about all of the protocols that they would be using. So for TMACOG, these are the 9 different chemical tests that they had to perform. So obviously with my kids, they didn't know what any of this stuff is ahead of time. You have to explain to them what each thing is, you know, how does dissolved oxygen affect the things living in the water, all those things, how to do the tests. So this was a good amount of time, just getting them through these tests, learning what these 9 things are, how to test for them. And then we also had to do some practice with macroinvertebrates. So we brought in just some buckets of stuff right from a river, and we did some practicing identifying in class. So this was just here at our school grounds. And then we actually went to Sidecut. So I have just a few slides that have some pictures of our day. So I'm very lucky that we had a lot of adult volunteers, a lot of other teachers that were able to come with us. So we were able to have 5 different stations. We had Globe as one of our stations. So Dr. C and Janet were able to come with us. They were able to do some of their surface temperature and their cloud data as one of their stations. So that's where Globe was kind of connected to this project. But then we also had 2 stations that were running some of the chemical tests. We had a station that was doing the macroinvertebrates. And then we had our last station was the habitat analysis. So you can kind of see them doing, like, here's the turbidity. That's Mrs. Buckholtz. I saw her on the sign-in list, so hi, Elizabeth. And then our kids, we did have waders, and they went right out in the water and did all those things. So these, again, just some other pictures, you know, checking for some of these chemical tests they were doing. When we found macroinvertebrates, which they did find quite a lot, we were collecting those as we went. They were making their observations, recording things on their data sheets as we went along. So it was just a really, really nice day. My kids, this was something very, very new for them. And it was just a really, really wonderful day. We were so lucky that we had perfect weather too. That made a big part of our day. Here's just some more. So again, they had to take some of their cloud data as they used the app to take pictures and did all that. We've got the seine, she's collecting stuff out of the water. So really, really cool day for the kids. And then after that, of course, when we came back, that's where we're kind of back to this. We collected our data, now they had to analyze it. So once they had all this data, basically they could go back to that driving question of, okay, so is it safe? Can I have my dog in the water? Can I take him kayaking, or is he gonna get sick? So, you know, you can kind of see, this is our PBL wall again, but these are kind of the data that they collected. They had to find their Q values and get the overall water quality in general. This is kind of where they had to look at the weighting system and see, you know, some tests had more weighting than others. So it was really 3 days worth of data to analyze all this data and finally come to our question at the end. And then with another big part of PBL is there's some kind of a public product. So that's actually coming up soon. My students are going to be it's going to be held at the Toledo Zoo this year, but the Student Watershed Watch is going to be November 8th. So I have kids that are working on different ways to present. There's some teams that are just doing posters. There will be some teams that will get on stage and present live in some kind of a skit or other kind of presentation. So they're kind of finishing that up right now, getting ready for their public presentation. And then again, it's just kind of this water quality testing, Globe in general, just lends itself so perfectly to project-based learning. With all of those design elements, we were able to kind of fit everything in, make it a really gold star PBL. So, you know, I really, really enjoyed working with Globe and working with TMACOG and just all of the teachers that were willing to come out and help me on that day. I wouldn't have been able to do it without being able to break the kids into different stations and do it that way. So that's kind of my experience. Like I said, I'm not really experienced with Globe in general, certainly not water quality. This was my first time, but that is how we kind of structured it based on that driving question, really to get my kids to care, to be honest. If I were to just tell them, hey, we're gonna go test the water, they'd say, so what? So I have to give them, you know, a reason for wanting to do this and make it their own. And they really did. They were really concerned about my dog. So it's kind of cool to watch them do that. So that's what I have.
That's great, Cindi.
Thanks.
Tracy asked the question in the chat box, how much time, basically how many days did you prep the students before going out in the field?
So this whole PBL, well, we introduced the PBL the second week of school. So that was August, late August. Our trip to Sidecut was September 24th. So we were going for a full month prior to our field trip. And a lot of it wasn't all just the water quality. It was, you know, with the vet and with Lake Erie and learning about watersheds. So everything kind of combined. The actual time spent learning how to do the protocols was probably, I want to say 6 days. All the protocols as well as the macroinvertebrates was 6 days of instruction.
Mm-hmm. Great. Does anybody have questions for Cindi? Let's see. Okay, Sarah asked, can you talk logistics? How did you connect with TMACOG and the Lake Erie photographer?
So the Lake Erie photographer was really just a fluke. Our principal is just friends with her. So it was kind of like one of these just random fluke Facebook things. She had posted something on her friend's Facebook page about this project. And I said, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Are you able to come in and talk to us at school? And she was happy to do that. So TMACOG was, we have a science support teacher who works with all of the STEM schools, McLaughlin, and she's trained in Globe. She's also trained with all the TMACOG stuff. So she was my lead for organizing the actual TMACOG Student Watershed Watch stuff. So she worked to get the kids registered to be legal and allowed to do all that. So again, just lots of partnerships. I was really lucky to have a lot of teachers willing to step in and help. Yeah, the heavens aligned. Everything was perfect.
Now, one of the things that Janet and I did, just to add, is we had the kids enter their water quality observations on the Globe website. And they were able to do that very easily because you've had these students twice, right? This is their second year?
Yeah, last year, that's the group of kids who last year did their surface temperature and cloud data and participated in the satellites conference. So they were experienced doing that part already.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every group pretty much nailed it. And I don't think they've ever put in water quality observations or hydrology observations.
No, we have not.
But I guess the data entry wasn't so bad that they were able to do it pretty fast. We did define the sites while we were out there, which was like, because there were 4 groups, I think there were 4, the first group defined the sites and then the groups after that entered the data. So not every group entered data, they defined the sites instead.
Yeah. And that worked out really well because when we came back to school, we were able to kind of share out what all the different teams did because not every group got to do every single chemical test just based on time. So once we kind of came back, they could collaborate and get the full picture of what everything happened.
All right, well, really nice, Cindi. So we should expect to see water quality presentations at the Sally's conference this year?
Well, we will hope. We'll see. If we can work out everything, yes, we would love to do that again.
And of course, the Midwest is supposed to be University of Wisconsin, but I heard that's after TPS is out, so that may be a problem.
That will be tough for us.
Yeah, to go there May 29th. So we're actually checking on that date to see if it's going to stay that date. Okay, well, thank you, Cindi. And if there's any other questions as we keep going on, please put them in the chat or you can talk also. Janet's now going to share a video that John McLaughlin made. And I'll just preface, John was a Globe trainer a long time ago, and he did that for a long time. And I think he did it through NOAA funding. I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but then he got a job at NOAA, and now he works at NOAA headquarters in Washington, D.C. He's somewhat of a bigwig. Oh, and Cindi, you have to unshare your screen.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
there it is.
Yep. Hi, good evening. I'm John McLaughlin from NOAA's Office of Education. I'm sorry I can't be with you live, but I want to take some time to overview resources we at NOAA offer, and want to thank you for looking at the water quality of the Maumee River, working with the outstanding team at Globe Mission Earth, University of Toledo, through a project funded by NOAA's Bay Watershed Education and Training Program. I applaud you for looking at how healthy your water is, as this is an important topic for all communities. I am now going to switch over to a brief presentation on NOAA resources, so bear with me as I share my screen. All right, hopefully you are now all seeing my screen. I am going to start presenting and tell you a little more about who I am. Once upon a time, I was a physical oceanographer. Then I did a fellowship at the Globe program and ended up working there for 4 years before coming to NOAA Education in 2006, where I served as a program officer for some of our grants and a program related to the Bay Watershed Education and Training Program. And I also coordinate our citizen science opportunities. I also currently manage the citizenscience.gov program, which is a platform for government-wide citizen science. And for fun, I collect cloud, precipitation, and water quality measurements. As you probably can tell by this point, I like citizen science. I work in Washington, D.C., on a building located on the corner of 14th Street and Constitution Avenue, which you're seeing here, on a day after an extreme flooding event. I also live along the Potomac River, a river that is being cleaned up in terms of water quality, but still faces many challenges. Stormwater runoff is increasingly being diverted away from the river through a large project here in Washington, D.C., but a lot of the storm runoff still goes into the Potomac after events like this. But that's not what I'm here to discuss today. Today I'm going to discuss an overview of NOAA Education and provide some of the resources we offer. Our education mission is to educate and inspire the nation to use science toward improving ocean and coastal stewardship, increasing safety and resilience to environmental hazards, and preparing a future workforce. So thank you for your efforts to help us do these worthy goals. I do want to say a little about who we are at NOAA Education, because we're a diverse group spread throughout the agency. You may know there are a lot of programs within NOAA that do education. Our National Weather Service, our National Ocean Service, National Marine Sanctuaries, the Sea Grant Program, just to name a few. These groups come together in an education council to help coordinate activities. And then we have an Office of Education as well, which offers grants, scholarships, and partnerships, as well as chairs, staffs, and advises the Education Council. And that is where I work. We have a plan. If you want to learn more about education at NOAA and how we're structured, visit noaa.gov/education and click on plan. I want to talk a little more about noaa.gov/education, our portal for education resources, because that is where you can find a lot of the resources we offer. You can find education resource collections, educator opportunities, and student opportunities, as well as links to our grants and networks. I'm going to now click over to the website. You can see up here, noaa.gov/education, reinforcing that URL. And the first tab we see on this page is our resource collection. So I'll click on the resource collection, and you'll find they're organized by topics. And since you're focused on freshwater, water quality, I will scroll down to freshwater and show you that there's a collection for the Great Lakes ecoregion, as well as the watershed, water cycle, watersheds, flooding, and pollution. So I'll click on the Great Lakes ecoregion, give you a sense of what one of these collections consist of. It gives you an overview of the topic, then lessons plans and activity, multimedia resources, data resources, as well as background information, and then career resources. It will also link you to related collections. So again, that is the Great Lakes Ecoregion collection. You can view some of the other collections we have available. All resources are free, and we would love for you to use them in your teaching. Speaking of your teaching, thank you for all you do, and we at NOAA offer educator opportunities to formal and informal educators. And so that's available from the second tab. And I would suggest checking these out. There really are some, what I think are pretty remarkable opportunities that are very highly ranked by the teachers who partake in them. So the Bay Watershed Education and Training Program again, the program that's funding the work you're focusing on today, as well as the Center for Great Lakes Literacy offers programs for educators. And then we have a lot of potential courses such as Data Stream Ocean and Data Stream Earth's Climate System. I'm going to scroll back up a little bit and show you that you can search for opportunities. I'm going to search for field experiences. As you may be able to tell from my citizen science background, I love hands-on learning. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit to highlight a couple programs, NOAA Teacher at Sea and Teachers on the Estuary, or TOTE. And these two programs offer unique experiences where teachers get a chance to go out on a NOAA research vessel or participate in multi-day research and field-based experiences in a NOAA estuary research reserve. Also, participating in these programs, you become part of a network of teachers that then NOAA works with past your field experience time. So suggest you consider those projects if any of that appeals to you. Scrolling back up and going back to our main education page. And now I'm going to click on student opportunities to show you that we also offer opportunities that your students may be interested in. Again, you can search by audience type or by opportunity type. One of the opportunities I'd like to highlight is our undergraduate program known as the Hollings Scholarship Program. And this provides students in their final 2 years of university with scholarship assistance for their final 2 years, as well as an internship with NOAA the summer between those 2 years. So for students who are interested in NOAA-related sciences and pursuing undergraduate education, this is an opportunity I would suggest you consider recommending to them. Now I'm going to go back to the main education page and scroll down a little bit to show you some of our metrics in terms of reach of our programs, and then scroll down to the education strategic plan that I talked about. So if you do want to dig in a little more on how NOAA supports education, this is the document that outlines that plan. So switching back over to my presentation, I just want to say thank you for the time today. Good luck with the rest of your workshop. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to email me. My email is here on the screen, john.mclaughlin@noaa.gov. And I'll leave that up for a second. And thank you again for all you do, and have a great evening. Goodbye.
Okay, so I forgot John wasn't live. I was going to ask him a question. Pretty funny. But if anybody has a question for John, you can put it in the chat. I can get it to him, or you can email him directly. I'm sure he would respond. He is a very reachable kind of guy. How competitive are the educator opportunities? That's a good question. Now, I know the teacher at sea, we've had a couple of our teachers we've worked with in the past do that. So I think every teacher that applied got to go. So I'd say that's 100%. That's the only one I know about as far as educator opportunities. I would suspect the student scholarships are very competitive. There was some like, you know, go to a NOAA center. I know I took a look at the website John was showing, the education one. There's a number of things for students. That's really cool. Let's see, the data stream project allows everyone in with a recommendation. Oh, okay. So yeah, there's data stream kind of professional development, I think. I use data stream for my weather classes because it has the, you know, has good weather maps from the National Weather Service. All right, so are there questions for myself or Cindy? Something we can give to John? Is anyone thinking of taking their students outside and hasn't done it yet? You know, take observations. Okay, nobody's saying they're going to be doing that.
Well, Kevin, you could tell them you've got a few more days in October for the Urban Heat Island Effect campaign.
That's true too. Yeah, we're doing the Urban Heat Island Effect campaign for Globe. And also the cloud campaign started on October 15th. And of course, clouds are a NOAA thing as well. Looking at the satellite imagery and that type of thing. And Connie, thanks for posting all this. So there's online courses through SUNY Brockport. I actually got a football scholarship to SUNY Brockport out of high school, but I didn't go there. So it's like a tuition scholarship. Okay, thanks, John. Now, my understanding is the Globe Observer app is going to have all the observations migrated to it, so that in the future, and this is like a couple months away, I think, you know, a couple months in Globe time is a year maybe, but the students won't have to define a site anymore. They'll take their phone or device out with the you know, it has the latitude and longitude on the device, and that will be the site definition then. And for even surface temperature, of course, clouds, mosquito habitat mapper, trees and land cover you can do now, but everything's going to be put on there in the near future. All right. Yeah, so yeah, check out the 3 grad credits for free. I know when we did our workshop this past summer in Defiance College, Amanda had a reduced rate for the grad credit. We're hoping to be able to have another workshop at Defiance College next summer. And I think it was pretty reasonable. I'll just say the University of Toledo is not reasonable for graduate credit. It isn't. We've never gotten a good break. Right, yeah, the data entry app is not as friendly as the Globe Observer one. That's a good point. Yeah, so that's all being, it's all being migrated over. We did find out something yesterday about how the clouds were changed from a military projection for, you know, where they're located to latitude and longitude. And I think that was in preparation of moving everything over to the new Globe Observer app. They have everything in latitude and longitude. All right. Well, we'll leave it open if anybody has any questions. It's good to see everybody, and hope you're having a great October and looking forward to well, the rest of the school year. All right, well, thanks everybody for calling in. We'll talk to you later.